So, hello again, everyone. It is time for another coffee conversation time. I've got my cup here, and let me tell you, I need it. Today has been a very long day. Although it was very satisfying, it was a tough day today. I am, of course, an attorney. I also do mediation. I'm certified by the South Carolina State Supreme Court as a family law mediator, and I do many mediations. And mediation can be draining. So I've spent the better of 7.5, 8 hours doing mediation today. 8 hours in a room, going from person to person with adults and their attorneys who know exactly why we're here, but they still can't quite, get off or take an exit out of this thing. You're going through a divorce. This is what this is, and you still can't take an exit. And so as the day was wrapping up and it was ending, and I was preparing to get everything done so I can leave here, I started thinking about back in the day when we used to, or people used to use an analogy of when you're trying to make a decision. They talk about forks in the road, and you come to the fork in the road, and like everything is supposed to stop, and you're supposed to decide which road you should travel. Should you go left? Should you go right? Like, what should you do? And the saying was, you travel the road, if I recall correctly, the least traveled road was the road that you should take. I think that's what I recall. But I began to think about that, and I think about life, and I think about relationships. And in this particular, when we're talking about divorce or dealing with issues with family court or with relationships, it really doesn't feel like a fork anymore. And it may be, I thought about that. Now you don't see a lot of forks in the road. You might come to a yield sign every now and then that you bear left or bear right or bear off of, but you don't really see a lot of bear left, bear right, or go straight. But what we do see a lot of are roundabouts, right? Those little circles in the middle. You see them everywhere. They're just popping up. And they're really popular now. And I thought about that. How interesting that they use things, on our highways and byways that really represent life. It doesn't feel like forks in the road. It really feels like a roundabout. You don't stop because you don't stop living. You still have to keep moving. You're already moving. You still have to keep moving. And you keep passing the same exits. And that was what mediation looked like today. Trying to not force, because mediation isn't about forcing anyone. We can't do that. But get someone to compromise. You talk about the same arguments, basically. You give them the pros and the cons, but what I have to do also is I have to listen to their fears, the same fears. And most of them are the same fears over and over and over again. And you understand that people just want to be heard. They want what's fair, especially if you're not dealing with someone that's looking at to get even. But you can tell the emotion that's in there. And when that emotion is there, they are going around and around in a circle in this roundabout, and they may have four exits to choose from, but they can't choose one immediately. But here's the thing. I say that to say, in this situation, this mediation situation, I had to see that they weren't really stuck. They were just circling. Like a roundabout doesn't trap you. You have to move because life keeps moving, but you can go around that circle until you're ready to choose. And that's what it is. And choosing while you're moving is hard. So some people are, they circle fast, they negotiate quickly, they want resolution yesterday. They think if they just keep things friendly enough, it'll all sort its way out. Others, they slow down. They want to analyze every option. They ask for certainty, that really sometimes doesn't exist. They wait for the perfect agreement before they'll move. And honestly, most people do both sometimes in the span of mediation. But here's what mediation reveals, and relationships do too. Every time you pass the same exit, you can learn something. You learn what you're willing to tolerate, what you keep justifying, what you keep calling confusion, even though it's familiar. And clarity, it almost never arrives that way. It arrives through repetition. The same conversation, the same impasse, the same quiet realization you don't say out loud because it would make something final. That's why emotional intelligence matters in so much in relationships and when we're dealing with family law situations and in mediation. It's not about forcing the decision, it's about getting them to recognize when the pattern has finished teaching them something. So let me ask you something. You don't have to, worry about, you know, putting this in a divorce situation. I want you to think about it in all relationships. What exit have you passed more than once? Not because you didn't see the exit, but because taking it would have changed the story you've been telling yourself. And then here's the harder question. Are you circling because you're still learning, or are you choosing, or choosing feels like losing? See, I want you to understand that as you're going in this roundabout, there's no rush. Like mediation doesn't rush you. We were here, a minimum of 3 hours in our state, but we could go on until 6, 8. Don't pressure. There's no pressure there. These types of things should be revealing. You keep presenting options, and sometimes those options change until you, the person, have, you're honest enough to, okay, I think now it's time for me to take my signal, and I think I'm going to take this first exit out of this roundabout. Or I may take, this, and I'm going to go over to the third exit because that's what I'm choosing. So if you feel like things are on repeat, or things are repetitive, or you're going in circles, don't feel lost. That's what I want to say. You're not lost. Make sure you're learning at every turn, learning something about yourself and about the situation. And what you might be really looking for is just clarity. Pray, ask for courage, sit down, think, write, journal, ask yourself the questions that matter. And what we really need to do is not let the emotion control the narrative. You read the emotion and use the emotion as information, and then you regulate that emotion so that you can move on. Because once you take whatever exit you're going to take from that roundabout, you're probably going to be more clear, and you're probably going to feel better about the situation because now you get to continue with your journey. Let's go on with this traveling journey. Life is a journey. We can do it with happiness, with contentment. We don't have to do it with resentment. So I just wanted to talk to you guys today. I think that was, I was just thinking about it, and in this coffee conversation, just how, we may not necessarily have forks in the road. And if you don't look at it as a fork in the road, if you look at it as a roundabout where life still continues to move and you still get to make the choices, we may make better decisions about things. But let's just make sure we're regulating our emotions while we're doing it. See you next time.